Quack-a-doodle-doo, what is up, fellow birds of the spiral? It's your friend and pal Fearsome here, back again with another video, and this time we are going to be discussing all things Musketeer, so buckle up and let's get started. So first things first, let's have a look at the gear of the pirate, particularly the headgear. We have a hat called Matador's Headgear that I like to use quite a bit for Valor's Absorb. The stats in this game really don't matter as much as the abilities. I know this is a cool ranged hat, but Valor's armor is super good to have. If you put a Valor's Fortress on before you put the Valor's armor on, the Valor's armor counts towards that Valor's fort. So it's really nice to have. Not only that, is you can have the benefits of Elusive or Turn the Tide while you're half health, while you still have a decent amount of protection because of Valor's armor. Not only that, when you have Valor's armor on, when a Valor's armor is put on any unit, it will soak up a critical, meaning that a double tap or a delayed storm will not basically trigger onto another unit like it usually would, unless the Valor's armor has completely been depleted. So, fun facts about Valor's armor and why I really like to have about as much of it as I possibly can. The next hat I have that I use mostly in 1v1s and versus swashbucklers is the Chou Kaza hat. Not only does it look super cool, but it gives a walk in darkness, and this is an ability-based game. By the way, if you want to know where any uh, piece of gear comes from, where you can farm it or where you can get it from, you can use the Pirate101 Central Wiki. A link down below in the description. Just type in whatever the name of the gear is or whatever ability you want to know about, and it will take you directly there. It'll also tell you if you search the particular power like Walk in Darkness, what other pieces of gear have Walk in Darkness. So very useful resource. I thought I would drop that in there. Pirate 101 Central Wiki is amazing. Great resource. All right. So this particular piece of gear is actually not used much in 4v4. So that pretty much sums up that right there. It's super easy to get, super cheap. I just bought it at the Skull Island Bazaar. I recommend having one around. All right. This hat here comes from the Tower of Fu Manchu. There is a level 60 version and a level 65 version that I don't think is really worth the time to farm for. It maybe gives a little more agility, but this is an ability-based game. And what's really important here is that the hat gives hail of cannonballs and super strike. Now, I would normally be wearing this hat, especially in 1v1s and 3v3s. I like having the super strike. If you have a good pet and you train burst fire and everything, then you'll chain a lot and you'll do like 2,000 damage like almost every single time. It's really great to have. Not to mention bombs are always great, especially in team battles. But it's a great piece of gear for a damage carry musketeer in general. I have one last hat, and I rarely use this because I think that having a lot of epics is not that great of a perk. It's okay in 1v1s especially, but at the same time, having abilities is really nice to have. So you're sacrificing a lot by using this hat, and sometimes True Grit can get you killed. Quick Adjust is really nice to have. Um, so this here hat, of course, you can get it from farming Kane at the end of Valencia Part 2. Uh, So I got it and I use it from time to time in certain situations. So you might find this useful as well. Now, I don't recommend getting Grit 3. Like I would use it in order to obtain Grit 2. Like for example, I have a Grit pet already, so I would get True Grit 2 and of course a quick adjust off of equipping this hat, along with a little bit of agility. So that pretty much sums up all the hats that I have and would recommend having around. Moving right along the coats, guys. Here's the coat I currently have equipped now. I mentioned before I'm going for mostly Valor's armor on this particular Musketeer setup that I'm wearing right now. It's a 4v4 setup, specifically what I am wearing, but I talk about all the gear you can possibly use in what situation. So this here piece can be used very well in 1v1s in PvE as well. It's just another Valor's armor that I have. I love having this coat. There's something really important I thought I'd mention about hats, coats, boots. They all drop in group chests in whatever world you get them from. So for these particular pieces of gear, the Valor armor gear, the hat and the coat, they both drop uh, in Cool Ranch. You just have to farm in a group of 4. This game rewards you when you help other people, so that's just one of the perks right there. All right, well, moving right along, we have Captain Blood's Obsidian Jacket. It's the same thing as Captain Blood's jacket, except it's level 70 and it is a lot easier to get. You get it from farming Obsidian Captain Blood. So the Skeletal Key Boss in Scrimshaw, super easy drop. Don't really recommend farming it though, unless you're a PvE player only, because Blood Flames do not work in PvP at all. So don't use it in PvP. Alright, and for the last option, we just have this coat here. Again, I said you have level 60 and level 55 version of the exact same thing in the Tower Boom Manchu, but this pretty much is just an extra pair of bombs if you need it. The other coats that I mentioned are usually better, especially in PvP, so uh, I don't use this one very often, to be honest. Alright, so we're on to boots now. Here are the boots that I use for 4v4s, for this particular 4v4 setup at least. These boots tend to be shin guards, are from the Skull Island Bazaar, and it gives a nice revive and some help. The main reason I have a heal like this is for if a pirate of mine dies in the team battle, the Musketeer's 5 or 6 range is very, very useful for healing somebody with a revive. The weapon's range actually counts towards the revive ability. So as you can see on the card, it says 6 range. That is because of the range of the weapon plus the range of the pirate. So that's the main reason I have the Centipede Shin Guards equipped for 4v4. Alright, so here's a great option for when you're fighting swashbucklers. Boots that give Walk in Darkness. Now there are actually 3 boots that do this. There's a level 65 version of this. I just didn't want to hunt it down. What's important is the ability. I could have bought the level 65 version, just I couldn't find it at that time. And I'm not going back to the bazaar just to get it. But it's really great because when a swashbuckler hides, you can pop this hide as well, and you can avoid getting hit by a uh, hidden assassin strike. Not only that, is that a lot of the abilities that musketeers have can be affected by the hidden damage boost. So if you attack while you're in Walk in Darkness, a single target at least, you can double your damage, and that is very, very helpful. especially versus swashbucklers who are very squishy. So that is why I have those boots around. These boots. Use them only in PvE. Frozen type boots are only good in PvE. Never use them in PvP. And that's pretty much all I have for these. Thankfully, the weapons for Musketeer are very, very simple. There's pretty much only one weapon that is considered the best by anyone for very good reasons, and it's this Haywire Thunder Rifle that gives Sniper Shot and Haywire Shot. It gives 5 range as well. Now, there are a couple of other weapons that give 5 range and decent damage, so if for some reason this is not dropping, then use any of those weapons that have 5 range and decent damage, like 200 something damage. But I would definitely recommend having this around because the sniper shot is super useful, especially in 4v4s. For eye patches, it's pretty much the same deal as with the weapon. There is one eye patch that is clearly more superior than all the other eye patches for Musketeer, and that would be the patch of Chi-Chi's Blind Luck. Mostly because it gives a hurricane round that does a quite hefty amount of damage in a nice diagonal X-shaped pattern. Now you do have some other options, but they're not nearly as good for most situations. A good replacement for the eye patch, if you can't get it to drop, would be the Saint Fido's eye patch because simply it is better than absolutely nothing. You can get it in the crown shop. There's a level 70 version of it now that gives like slightly better stats. I think like 12 weapon power instead of what I have right here. But seeing as how I have the hurricane round eye patch, I don't really care anyway. So that's pretty much all I have as far as eye patches. Let's have a look at totems. For totems, in this particular instance with the other gear that I have equipped, I'm going for as many Valor armors as I can possibly equip. And I have the Braves Spirit Bag. Um, I got this from fighting Buck Bronco. It does not drop in a group chest, so it's quite a bit of a farm. I can't blame people who don't want to go to the trouble of getting this, but it's really handy to have. So it's just another Valor's armor. Now, as far as totems go, there is also a Valor's Fortress totem right here, the Apprentice Charm that gives Valor's Fortress. It's a good substitute if you do not have the one that gives Valor's armor. We have the Musketeer Banner as well on this account. It gives a nice boost to your accuracy and agility that doesn't run out for the entire game unless the banner is interacted with by your opponent. In that case, that reduces the agility that you have. So your Musketeers basically don't critical as much. So that's a huge downside to the banner, is that there are so many ways to counter it, like even Purge Magic. Um, really, it's a really tricky um, ability to use versus anyone who knows what they're doing. So use this with care. It's a lot of fun, and that's pretty much why I have it. Here's a revive charm at the bazaar. Just another way you can get revive, and it's super easy to get. No farming required. And lastly, for charms, we have this here Jewel of Muminchu. Now there's a level 60, a level 55 version as well. Hail Cannonballs, Super Strike, that's what we're after when it comes to this. Again, great for damage carries as far as Musketeers go. I use it a lot in my 1v1 setups. Now I have charms here. One is the Keyrin Jade. Keyrin's Jade, I should say. Just another Valor's Fortress, really. And I have this here, right charm. I actually don't use this very often. It's pretty much just another thing of bombs. In PvP, at least, I do not use it. In PvE, I use it quite a bit because pulling all of your bombs consistently is quite nice. So it's only an item that I use for farming, really. As I said before, True Grit and Quick Adjust is not nearly as important as having more abilities in most instances, and sometimes True Grit can get you killed. So, that being said, I still do have this piece of gear, and it might be something you like to use. Just a suggestion. I don't recommend it most of the time, though. But it does give True Grit a quick adjust and some extra accuracy. And lastly, we have Sprocket Key. This piece of gear gives Purge Magic. It's for purging off the buffs of an opponent. Like if a buck charges you with like 3 or 4 Valor Fortresses on, then that would be an obvious situation where Purge Magic would be very, very useful. And it's also repellent because people are less likely to charge you if they know you have Purge Magic on. So I don't like using it a lot. I think that having a Valor's Fortress is personally better in PvP. It's utterly useless in PvE. As of yet, there aren't any bosses where purging off their buffs will necessarily do anything good or help you in any way. So it's a PvP ability and it's very situational. But I have it anyway, and you may find a situation in which it's actually useful. Now we have rings to have a look at. This here ring is pretty much the go-to ring, Southern Cross Gem. You always hear about how Musketeers are farming Southern Cross Gem, at least if they do PvP. This is what they always go to. Now, some people have very bad luck. Instead, they'll get the Revive ring from the Bazaar, but this is pretty much where you want to be at as far as rings go. Southern Cross Gem. Last but not least, this is the last piece of gear we will be covering, but it is one of the most interesting and fun pieces of gear to put together. It's the pet. Guys, if you need help with pets, I've been streaming like every Friday at 5 p.m. Central Time. Hopefully, I'll continue doing that. But, drop by, allow myself or one of the other people in the community to help you with a pet. Now, I have awesome Musketeer pets, as you can see by looking at this pet. The only thing I would change about this pet, to be honest, would be would be to get a Kraken's armor or, Rainbow Bless. Either of those things would be really great to have instead of that one selfish talent that it has. But Burst Fire, True Grit is pretty good. Overwatch is really nice. Elusive, another good one to have. Rally, another obvious good one to have. It pretty much makes the perfect Musketeer pet, minus that selfish talent. So that's an idea of what you want on a Musketeer pet. All right, now we've covered all the abilities. Let's have a look at some potential setups for different situations. I like this one here for team battles, particularly 4v4, but also 3v3. The Tempest of Torpedoes is like the first one because this here prevents people from just, walking across the board. So super useful to have right up front. And of course that 6th range is really good to have. Second, I have Sky Spirit. And that's mostly because it can boost the damage of your abilities and basic attacks. And I usually pop it at the beginning of a battle. And then I use the Sniper Shot from my Pirate and Chantal Livingston to do a hefty amount of damage right from the start. But it's just nice to have as a pressure tool in general. Of course, I have Sniper Shot. Notice I have my other bombs right here. And then I have my Valor's Fortresses, followed by my Valor Armors. 10 round agility buff and my group heal, and of course all my heals right here, all my other heals, and then I have my hits right after that, because um, that's pretty much where I want my abilities to show up during PvP matches, each individual stage. Now here's some less important abilities. Now I actually would move the scatter spikes up a little further if I knew there wasn't a swashbuckler in that particular match, but swashbucklers, they can walk through bombs and traps and stuff and basically take no damage at all. So it's the main reason why I don't have any of my traps up so high. Now, in some situations, I would actually move my hurricane round up a little further. I'd put it like that or like this, depending. It really just depends on who I'm facing and what their style is and what classes they have and what setups they're using. Adjust your gear accordingly and find what works, but this is an idea of what you might use in some team PvP battles. Alright, so here's something like what my deck would look like in a 1v1 situation. I changed a couple things. You saw I moved my sniper shot back. The main reason I do that, and the main reason why I save my super hits till mid-game or late game, is because you already have reactionary epics like Quick Draw and True Grit and stuff like that, and that's going to trigger most of your chains anyway, so super striking does not make much sense if you have Hurricane Round, or you have Hail of Cannonballs, or you have Tempest of Torpedoes, or something else to use. So it's better to just use another ability in most situations. Now, to ensure a kill, sometimes it's necessary to have one of these, but in 1v1 situations especially, your sniper shot is like another super hit. And notice I also equipped, some more a hail of cannonballs and super strike. Remember the totem that I talked about earlier that gave that? I basically swapped that out. Now sometimes I'll go a little more damage heavy. Sometimes even for team battles I will go a little more damage heavy. But that's just an idea of what my hand might look like. Also, this Walk in Shadows is going to be a little more useful in 1v1 situations, so I moved that up as well. And this is going to be less useful for obvious reasons. Now, sometimes what I would do is particularly when I'm versus a Buccaneer or someone like that, is I'll bring up my Haywire shot and put it on the front page. It'd be a lot more useful in 1v1 battles. So that's an idea of how I might adjust. Now, what I might do also is grab my hidden boots, Shadow Army slippers, and I might put those on, and then I might move my hide up way up here. I might put my 5-round hide right there, and then just wait for the swashbuckler to hide, pop my Walk in Darkness right here, and then hit him with one of these trick shots, Hurricane Round or Inferno Shot. So just a couple of ideas for how you might set your deck depending on who you're facing in a 1v1. Yeah, that pretty much covers your 1v1 deck setup. All right, and here we go for PvE. This doesn't take a lot of thought, because in PvE you don't really have to protect yourself much. But just in case you have those companions, like we've all done Doomio, we've all done Smuggler's Arena, or even if you haven't, just trust me, there are those companions that have like automatic super hits. And for that, I do suggest having Frozen Tide from the Frozen Tide boots I showed you earlier. These guys, and of course, Captain Blood's jacket is another bonus, but you could just as easily use this here for an extra hail of cannonballs. But back to powers here. You want to put all of your bombs up front after you put your Frozen Tide and your Blood Flames up there. And then you want to follow that by all of your heals, just in case, and your best agility buff. You may want to put your other ones up there as well, because those are all the powers that you'll need. Now, why do you only put these powers up there? Well, because Tempest of Torpedoes, Hail of Cannonballs, all those bombs, they are Mojo powered. What does this mean? That means that this guy here, Old Scratch, can use this ability here, Mojo Flow, and he can power your weapon. to drop incredibly powerful bombs, these guys here. Now, what's important, though, is that you equip a will-based weapon for this. It can be any will-based weapon. It can have 2 damage, it can have 200 damage, but it has to be will-based. You're going to be doing your damage to opponents. You're going to be killing your opponents by hail cannonballs and other bombs like that. That's how you're going to do it. Not only that, is when you're farming in a group, you are able to take the scratch buff, Flow Mojo Flow and Mojo Flow. You're going to be taking all these scratch buffs from a distance because you have that will-based weapon. So you can have bombs that are doing 5,000 damage. So that explains why you would set your deck for PvE in this particular way. And there we go. That is the last power setup I'll be showing for this guide here. You can modify it to suit your own style, of course. Here's what you need to train as far as powers go. This Valor Shield, Ruse, Gunnery. That's mostly so you can access other stuff in the Privateer Trainer, by the way. Hurl Knife is one that I like to train because what few people don't know, I should say, is that Hurl Knife actually triggers epics. Like, it can trigger Burst Fire. So, very few people know that. And, it's basically like a basic attack, but it reduces movement speed by 50%, and it's also, a guaranteed solid damage, which is always nice. This Walk in Shadows, for obvious reasons, because you can hide late game with it, and the Sneak Attack, I think, is so that you can train the Walk in Shadows, but is what you need to train for your powers, mostly so you can access other stuff from the trainer. I think only these 3 powers are particularly useful. Here's a look at the talents you'll want to train. You'll want to train Staffy too. I think you have to train Dodgy at the Swashbuckler Trainer to basically obtain something else important. Yeah, you have to train Stabby too. I think it's so you can train Fast 2. Now, Fast 2 is a must for all classes because being able to move around the map and PvP in particular is super important. Can't stress that enough. I have Witch Hunter. We have Spooky 2 as well from the Witch Hunter trainer. This here is from the Hidden Trainer in Devilfish Hollow. Yeah. You'll want to train Burst Fire from the Secret Trainer in Devilfish Hollow. Now, the Secret Trainer in Devilfish Hollow changes every hour, so it will be the Musketeer one at 1 hour, and then next hour will be Skeletal Hoplite that you can train, melee epics with. And then, of course, there's the Witch Doctor one, where you can train Witch Hunter and stuff like that. So yeah, I think we've covered all of that. Now, you want to also train Overwatch 2 as well. So you can use that Overwatch pet and get Overwatch 3. And that covers everything that you need to train talent-wise. Okay, we're on to companions. So I'm going to give a quick overview of each companion. Now, I want to point something out. Really, how you set your companions depends mostly on just how you're going to use them. There are actually many setups, and I will be going over those here for at least the most important companions. Alright, so starting with Ratbeard. He is basically a tank that blocks melee units, mostly Buccaneers and Swashbucklers, but also Privateers as well. I like to Hold the Line 2, First Strike 3, and Blade Storm 2, because as a Musketeer, you don't really need Repel Borders 3, which is the other setup for Ratbeard, because you have Overwatch 3, and you're a Musketeer, so that better hit, or it usually does most of the time. So having the Hold the Line 3 reduces the dodge of whatever target runs into it. So it's kind of nice to have as a wombo combo with Musketeer's Overwatch. Of course, First Strike 3 is kind of a must. 25% extra damage on First Strike if you have rank 3. Not only that, as it removes hides, so he's also good for counter Swashbuckler in many situations. Uh, because he does have Tide too, which gives him the accuracy and the increased damage and everything. So that can be quite helpful. Not only that, the Blade Storm 2 does help chain a little bit. It's not usually advisable to have Blade Storm 2 on a Ratbeard, but for a Musketeer, I think this is a clear exception. But that's how I have my Ratbeard set for Musketeer, and I don't recommend anything else, to be honest. Alright, well, moving right along, we have Chantal Livingston. Probably the best companion in the game, to be honest. But let's give a rundown of her abilities real quick. She does have sniper shots. This is super useful in team battles, 4v4s especially. If you have a couple of Musketeers and you have the Chantal Livingstons, you can take out a unit early game. That is the main perk that Chantal Livingston has. She does come with a buff, also really useful. And here's a quick look at how we set our Chantal Livingstons. So Overwatch 2, Quick Draw 2, Burst Fire 2, Double Tap 2. Now you may be asking, hey, why don't you have Overwatch 3? Some people do ask me that. It is actually a setup that some people use. The way I look at it is a Musketeer Pirate is more likely to hit, right? So that being said, if a Musketeer's Pirate's Overwatch is more likely to hit and reduce a Pirate's accuracy, which is kind of the idea of Overwatch 3, then why would you need it on a companion as well? As far as, for a Musketeer that has Overwatch 3. You don't need it on a companion. And Chantal Livingston tends to miss at least one of her shots. So that quick adjust can be the difference between a full chain and, just a hit and then like a double tap that doesn't land. You know what I'm saying? So that's why she has quick adjust. Quick adjust is really, really nice to have on Chantal Livingston. So quick look at her talents. Alright, well, moving right along to Contessa Argento. One of my favorite companions, particularly in 1v1s, for this ability here called Gallant Defense. If you're against a swashbuckler or, a buccaneer or someone like that, then you can basically corner yourself, or you can put yourself against the side of the wall in a PvP match, and you can pop this Gallant Defense. So if you have Contessa right on the outside of where your pirate is, and your pirate's on the wall or in the corner or something, you pop this, it protects them. That combined with First Strike 3 means that a swashbuckler basically has to blow his hide in order to attack. So super useful to have. Another reason she's good is obviously her Walk in Darkness combined with Backstab does massive damage. It does roughly 3,000 damage sometimes. It's quite hefty. She gets some good epics. She gets Trap Sense, which also makes her really great for clearing a Musketeer's traps. Just a great all-around companion for a lot of different things. And that pretty much sums up Contessa, really. Alright, the companion that is usually banned in pretty much all PvPs except for rank for the most part, Old Scratch. Old Scratch is actually not all that important. There are a couple of ways you could set him, but what's really important is getting his final upgrade so he can get this ability here, Flow Mojo Flow, because that is pretty much why he is useful as a companion. He does have some other perks, like he does have this Purge Magic, and this little summon thing, this Bone Golem. And he gets some decent epics too, but that's a look at how I have him set. Some people like to give him Coward's Bane instead of this here, the Improved Mojo Blast. Sometimes they replace one of these right here, the Mojo Echo. I honestly would replace one of the Mojo Echoes with another Witch Hunter and use them as a counter Witch Doctor companion, especially for facing Witch Doctors who insist on using Scratch. That's honestly how I would set my old Scratch. If I was able to reset him right now, I would give him Witch Hunter 3 instead of Mojo Echo 2. And I don't know, maybe I would replace one of the improved Mojo Blasts with a Coward's Bane or something like that. So here's a look at what I have talent-wise. You could swap in the Will for, I don't know, more Mojo Power or something like that. Maybe Rough instead. Yeah, probably Rough, to be honest. Yeah, that's Old Scratch. Pretty much used for farming and countering Witch Doctors who insist on using Scratch in spar matches. I mean, he's alright in ranked as well to boost your bomb damage. He's alright. But yeah, that's Old Scratch. Here's a companion you want to buy in the Crown Shop if you buy any companions at all for Musketeer, Exeter. And the reason why I say that is because this ability here, the Maelstrom, reduces movement by 50%. It is super annoying when the other team gets first turn and your movement is reduced by 50%. Like, it really cripples you seriously, and that's the reason why Exeter is by far one of the best Crown Shop companions in the game. Now, some people would disagree because on paper it doesn't look like he would do much damage. I mean, he doesn't really have burst fire or anything like that, but he actually does put out a pretty decent amount of damage. He probably has hidden critical stats or something because this guy sometimes outdoes damage carries like Chantal Livingston and Bonnie Ann. So, go figure. But another reason he's so good is because of his Musketeer's Melee. Reduces damage by 50%. Super good to have. Here's a look at how I have him set. Now I have him set with Grit 3 for stuns. I also have Double Tap 2. The reason I have Double Tap 2 is because, as I said before, it seems like he has hidden crit stats or something because he just criticals a lot for no reason at all a lot of the times. And of course, the return fire he comes with. And a 1 Overwatch. And that's mostly for countering Nausicas. So, that sums up Exeter pretty well. Definitely a good buy if you plan on getting companions in the Crown Shop. And he's like, he's like $10 or $5 if you get him on sale. So, that's Exeter. Alright, let's have a look at Bonnie Ann, the Fox Highlander. Probably one of the best companions in the game. Has been pretty much good, pretty much every meta there is for a number of reasons. Number one, she has a heal that can be used at infinite range. It is 25%, which means it's not, super. And it's usually less than 25%. But some of her other abilities are Scatter Blast, which is a long-range AoE attack. This is especially good in 4v4s and 3v3s and team battles in general. But not only that, as it reduces accuracy by 25%, so it has a lot of utility in 1v1 as well. But the main reason she's so good is because she has 5 range just like Chantal Livingston, and she has a pretty decent amount of epics. Now here's one setup you can use for her. You can go Double Tap 2, Quick Draw 3, Burst Fire 2, and Return Fire, but You can also go Overwatch 3 instead of this quick draw 3. Leave everything else the same. But if you do that, I would do it on a different class than Musketeer because it's kind of pointless. Musketeer already has the Overwatch 3. If your Musketeer does have it, then it's pointless, is what I'm trying to say. So there we go. That's Bonnie Ann for you. One last thing is some people skip like the last promotion so that she doesn't get stock assault because some people don't like the fact that if she hits a Buccaneer after the Buccaneer dodges her and the Buccaneer hits like a Vengeance Strike chain, it sometimes kills the companion and sometimes a little bit worse. So some people actually skip this last upgrade. Now, I haven't had a huge problem with that, but it has lost me a couple of games, so just something to keep in mind. And yeah, that's all I have to say about Bonnie Ann. Except, here's a look at her talents. Alright, now that's it. Here's a companion that is not used very often anymore, simply because there are companions that outclass them now, like Exeter and Contessa. But Louis Labisque, or however you say his name, he has a couple of things that other companions don't have. He does have 5 range, just like Bonnie Ann and Chantal Livingston. And he has a pretty wide range of epics. Now, his main downfall is the fact that he can't train Burst Fire 2. Because if he could train Burst Fire, he would be a little bit like Bonnie Ann, minus an epic, of course. But he does come with his Super Strike. He does have some pretty crappy bombs, Rain of Mortar Shells, the worst in the game. Which, I mean, it's a solid hit, so, I mean, I'll take it rather than not have it at all, but that's just one of the things he has. He has Bear Trap as well, also alright, especially with a good Rat Trap combo. I should make a video guide on Rat Trap combo sometime, but mostly good in 4v4 battles. That's pretty much it, and for countering Musketeers. Other than that, I would not recommend him at all. Here's a look at his talents, by the way. Some people like to go for Dodgy 4 instead of Agile 4, so keep that in mind as well. Alright, Nausica. Same deal with Exeter, kind of, except that Nausica is not purchased in the Crown Shop, but it is definitely worth your money. It's something you can buy for like 20 bucks when you're on sale, and you get a lot of good gear from the same bundle. So if you're going to buy any bundle in the game, I would recommend getting the Empire bundle that gives Nausica. But she is the companion in the game that has the most movement, 7 movement. Now her range is 4, so it's not as good as a lot of the other companions in this guide. But here's a look at how I have her set on my Musketeer. That's her epics. Now, this might be actually a case in which you might want to train. You might want to either train True Grit 3 or put an extra double tap, depending on how you want to use her. But those are also options. You can go full grit or you can go full chain. Some people actually go quick draw 2, burst fire 2, and double tap 2. Like if I were to use her for counter swashbuckler, for example, that's the way I would go. But once again, Musketeers, they face teams with a lot of grit units and a lot of burst fire units, so that's the reason why I'm saying True Grit 3 would actually be kind of nice. Alright, well, enough with that. Let's just have a look at the talents. We have Agile 4, we have all this stuff here. Now, one thing I would change possibly would be make her have dodgy 4 instead of agile 4, and then just keep agile 1. That's just an option. Because I haven't noticed like an increase in critical chance or a huge increase in damage by having all that agility there. It doesn't make much of a difference at all. The dodge, on the other hand, um, is actually something that helps a lot. But also consider the fact that if I put dodgy 4 on Nausica, she wouldn't get hit as often, so True Grit would not trigger as often. So do I really want that? And I think that's the main reason I stuck with Agile 4. And one last companion to finish the companion section of this guide. We have Hell Toro. He's honestly not used much, and he's just kind of like a sub-in. But same setup I had in the previous guides. I have one for a Swashbuckler and Privateer out already. There you go. Dodgy 4, Accuracy 4, Tough 4. All the same talents. What's really great about him is he has Alert, but those are the abilities he has. His most useful, the most useful thing about El Toro is the Esprit de Corps. But he's honestly not used much on Musketeer because Musketeers just have so much accuracy already, and we already know they're not going to dodge much. So the point of Esprit de Corps is well, it's kind of pointless. No pun intended, but that's how you set your El Toro. Yeah, all right. Let's cut right to the most important part of the video. We always save the best for the last. Let's talk about the class in general and how you might play it. Now, I actually recommend maxing a Musketeer as your first class. And here's why. Because even with the free companions, you still have a lot of great compositions you can utilize. For 3v3s, for example, or 4v4s, you can go Bonnie Ann, you go Louis the Bisque, Bonnie Ann, Chantal Livingston, and sub-in Contessa, or Ratbeard in some instances. Those are free companions, okay? Not many other classes really have the same amount of viability when it comes to free companions. This is probably the least expensive class to play, money-wise and time-wise as well, because this class is also the best farming class in the game. Now, PvP-wise, privateers are quite a bit more powerful in some ways. But what's great about this class is if you really want a class to learn the game in general, and a class that is used a lot in team battles as well, then I can think of no better class than Musketeer. It is a Musketeer's meta right now. Privateers have always been powerful, but right now it is a Musketeer's meta. So how is Musketeer meant to be played? Let's talk a little bit about that. Alright. Musketeer is it's an interesting class. It's some people think, hey, I'll just sit in a corner, I'll put up a barricade, and I'll hide behind it and bomb. But there are several problems with that. Someone who is actually smart can just wait on the other side of the barricades and wait out all the bombs and everything. What you really want to do is you want to move down the field and you want to bomb in places that apply pressure. Now, sometimes you have to use bombs as a deterrent. I get that. There are some situations, and it is all situational. But Musketeer is about applying pressure as quickly as you can. Of course, the main weakness of Musketeer is they can't both move and attack at the same time, but one of their main strengths is the fact that they can be far away and they can do damage. So that pretty much sums up Musketeer and how it's meant to be played, of course. And that concludes the video. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you could drop, like, sub, any of that stuff. And if you found this helpful, please, share it. Anything you can do to help would much be appreciated. I stream, try and catch me in one of those and get yourself a good pet morph at the same time and meet some of the other people in the community. Until then, peace out for now.